Good evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. I hope you guys are doing well. Pretty stacked video here to a point. We're going to briefly touch up on things for this weekend's forecast. Thank goodness we finally made it. But before that, I just want to say I appreciate you guys for being here. We're at 244 subs right now. 1 year anniversary of the first video I've uploaded on the channel was March 6th. So to have this many subs within the first year is amazing, so I want to say thank you guys for that. And now with that out the way, we're going to go ahead and address what's expected for this weekend. So we have a very stacked weekend as far as severe weather is concerned. We have a marginal risk today. Not really a whole lot going on there. No severe warnings, but there are flood watches in effect across the panhandle of Florida. And we'll probably be expecting these to extend further eastward into parts of the peninsula, especially towards northern Florida. Then tomorrow, we have a slight risk for severe weather, and this is also including a increased tornado threat, potentially even a strong tornado threat. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty about that tomorrow. But we do have an increased tornado and wind threat, and I do think a hail threat does exist with this. There are certain parameters here that exist for that would allot for a little bit of hail potential. But that, again, will be went over in further detail in tomorrow morning's video. It's going to be a pretty active weekend on this channel, so stay tuned. But that being said, I'm also going to give you a teaser into next week, and it's going to be very busy because look at those. Day 6 and 7 slight risk. You don't see those too often, especially not in February. So that's another thing that we're gonna have to touch up on. We will be touching up on that in Saturday afternoon's video. So you're getting a daily double out of me tomorrow, where we could even see some winter weather in my area even. But we're also gonna have to cover the threat for some severe storms over towards northern Florida too. So let's go ahead and look at the temperatures across the entire country here. So for the most part, throughout the entire weekend, with the exception of the southeast, we're going to be pretty much below average for a lot of regions. Warm air is going to start to build more so towards the northeast as we move this forward, especially as we get into the afternoon hours. We're starting to see those 40s push a little bit further north. Now we're getting Pennsylvania into the mid 30s, some areas reaching 40. And then as we head into Sunday afternoon, Super Bowl Sunday, by the way, for my football fans, that pool of cold air, and you can actually, if you look at this really closely, you'll actually see where this low pressure is that's causing our problems to, you'll see where it's spinning up at. It's right about here right now. But watch what happens as this roll forward, roll forward. But watch towards this part of your screen right here. This is towards overnight tonight, and then watch what ends up happening. You see a little bit of a spin develop right around here, and you also begin to see a little bit of cold air funneling into it. And this is what's going to end up being the catalyst behind this winter setup that we'll end up seeing across this region here, especially over towards Virginia, where there's potential for even some icy conditions. But right across this little region where I've drawn out here, we could see some hefty snow flurries, or even some snow accumulation in some of the higher elevations here. And then over towards Virginia, I've been seeing trending towards some moderately significant ice totals. This is also towards a mountainous region, so we'll have to see who exactly is in this area for sure. But it's interesting to see that in this model run. But look what ends up happening as we continue to draw this forward here. So we move that forward. Look at where that cold air really starts to develop as we head into overnight Saturday and into Sunday. Here's that low right there. That's going to also be causing the severe weather threat. And we'll watch this roll off to the east here and drag in some cold air behind it with some leftover moisture. And remember what I've said about these southeast setups here. These are always based off of timing more so than anything else. Usually, in most cases, the cold will be a little too far behind the moisture. But in this case, they're coming in not almost at the exact same time, but at a very similar time. So these regions that are normally not used to seeing snow now have a shot at seeing some snow flurries, maybe even some accumulative snow, and maybe even some ice for some of these areas up here towards the mid-Atlantic. But interesting setup there. And then, of course, as that moves off, weather starts to stabilize a bit. Sunday is expected to be pretty quiet of a day. If we look towards the rest of the country, though, it's going to be pretty quiet. Temperatures are going to be the big story there. Some really cool temperatures expected in the western half of the country, especially during the nights. It's going to be pretty cold. And even towards Texas here, we could be dealing with some pretty cold overnight temperatures on Saturday and Sunday. We do start to see an improvement as we head towards Saturday night into Sunday. And then by Monday, of course, we're starting to stabilize there. Around the mountains seems to be the coldest point around the west, but even then, those temperatures are not too far below average. I mean, some teens and some 20s towards the higher elevations isn't that uncommon for you guys. Maybe slightly below average, but not by a major margin, I would say. I think tonight into tomorrow morning is going to really be the coldest time frame for you guys. Now, the other thing to note with this feature here is that with it spinning off like this, and with the high dew points that we often will end up seeing off the shores of the Gulf, being in the 60s, and you can even see the warm air around the Gulf being pulled in with this system, you have already 3 components put together for severe weather. You look for 4 letters, SLIM, or slim factor, which is shear, lift, instability, moisture. So when you put a low pressure into the mix, you get lift. When you have instability or a collision of warm and cold air like we do in this situation, you can see the cold air right here, warm air is here. And then with the moisture that we have in abundance from the Gulf, that's 3 factors. Now, if we just get a little bit of wind shear, which often ends up being associated with those low pressures, you have all 4 of the parameters that you would need for severe weather. So it's pretty self-explanatory as to how this ends up happening. The question will be, what kind of storm modes could we see across northern Florida tomorrow? That's what we'll get into partially with this video, but we'll go into greater detail with that in tomorrow morning's video. So that way we have the most up-to-date information ahead of the storm. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at that reflectivity really quickly. And what we'll see here is for the rest of the country, we're pretty quiet. Most activity is, well, towards Florida. And there's that low pressure right there. So move this along, and this is heading into the overnight hours. Here comes our low. It's still hanging off in the Gulf. But as this draws closer throughout the day, I'm sorry if I keep on moving this around because I have to make sure I have the time frame in here properly. This low ends up meandering a bit off the Gulf here as we head into the morning and afternoon hours. But look when we get towards about maybe 11 to 12 o'clock. Little line of showers and storms develops right here. Here's our contrast between our warm and cold air at this point. This is the air that's actually below freezing. It's cooler temperatures around here, but there's a warmer air mass around this region. So this is going to be our battle zone right here. I'm going to try to circle that better. Getting smoother with the transitions here, but it's a work in progress. That's almost exactly where our slight risk area is right across here. So we have to be on the lookout for not only supercells that are onshore and capable of producing severe weather, but maybe some offshore. Water spouts, I think, are a very real possibility, I would say. So as we draw this forward, if I can actually get my computer to not draw forward. There we go. We watch a line of storms develop, and there looks like there could be a mode where these are semi-discrete cells too. So again, it's going to be a very interesting setup here to watch over northern Florida. And then look what happens here as we head into the overnight hours or evening hours into Sunday. Look what happens here over towards southern Mississippi. That little blue blob right there, that's snow. the cold air started to funnel around the center of this system here, and then right on the back side of it, it's mixed in with some of this cold air, and there's a small pocket of snow towards southern Mississippi. And this could be a period of heavy snow too, because of the abundant moisture that's coming from the Gulf. Of course, I think this will melt pretty quick, but it'll be a sight to see for people down there, because you guys don't see snow much. So when that happens, it's a real I don't really know the word to describe it for them. Like I've seen snow a few times. I've lived in Atlanta, had a white Christmas before, but when you see it for the first time in that kind of abundance, like what you could be seeing there, seeing those huge snowflakes, it just kind of blows your mind a little bit. But move this forward here. There's a small pocket right here where it's more so coming up as rain, but snow is very much possible in an entire sleeve, pretty much from, I'd say, northern Alabama, good portion of Georgia, especially northern Georgia, all the way through here. Throughout the course of the next, I would say, I don't know, several early morning hours, I'd say, between 7 and 10 o'clock. Worst of it starts to move out by about 11. The storm system's pretty much offshore by this point. I don't think these totals will end up lingering for long. These will end up melting as we will quickly see the air temperature rise above freezing. But overall, it'll be a nice sight for a lot of people to see, because some of these areas here haven't gotten any snow. My area hasn't. We've seen a few flurries, but that's about it. But it'll be a nice little sight for some of us. Main area I'm concerned with is over here, where we could see a little bit of heavy freezing rain for a brief minute here. We'll have to see it if it accumulates, but over towards the mountains, that could become a big problem. And then, of course, towards the end of the model run, not really a whole lot going on over here at this point. That little cold pocket has worked its way offshore by this point, heading into Sunday night into Monday. And then pretty much the picture's quiet. So it'll be a welcome break, but you already saw the spoiler if you've gotten this far in the video. We know what's coming next. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at what the potential snowfall accumulation could be. I think most of these are going to end up being overplayed, but nonetheless, we'll go ahead and look at what we have so far. Of course, towards the Sierra Nevada, we have a little bit of activity there. Some shortwave systems are expected. But as we look at the Euro, there's a small pocket over here between the Tennessee Valley here that could see up to about 3 to 4 inches, possibly 2 to 4, I'd say. Same can be said across the Appalachians. Foothills are going to practically get trace or next to nothing. And pretty much across a large portion of the southeast and heading into the mid-Atlantic, it's going to be little to no snow, really. We move this over to the Canadian. It's a pretty similar deal. In fact, it's even less snow. And then for the south, oops, I've made a little botch there. So the GFS, slightly more aggressive. Over towards North Carolina, we have a look where we could get up to about maybe 6 inches plus of snow over towards the Appalachian Mountains, up towards the higher elevations. But outside of that, not really a whole lot going on. North Georgia mountains could get a good little coat of snow up to about maybe 4 inches possibly, according to the GFS. Then when we go to the HRRR, there's a small little swath right here where we could see maybe a trace of snow, and this could include the Atlanta area. Again, the main winners are going to be this small little pocket right here where a band could develop across central Tennessee, into the Tennessee valleys, maybe northern Alabama. And then, of course, over towards Virginia, we could see some significant snow totals too. We compare that with the NAM. It's a similar look. 3 kilometer NAM. 3 kilometer NAM is really the only one that has this little pocket, this little sleeve of snow that develops right here, a little snow band. But every other model seems to have all the other bands that develop here and here. It doesn't quite make it as far into Virginia as some of the other models. But outside of that, we're in pretty good agreement here. Now, the other thing to talk about, of course, ice. And we'll start out with the Euro. Very aggressive over towards the border of North Carolina and Virginia here. We see the same look with the Canadian, but that's not a surprise. We've seen the Canadian's tendencies on this channel. Not to say that it's always wrong, but this is a little bit bold, in my opinion, to see up to about ½ inch ice just from this small period of wintry precip here. GFS is also showing a little bit bolder of a look here. We've seen up to an inch ice. I don't see that happening. We get to the HRRR. This is where I would get a little bit more concerned, because I still see totals where we could get up to about maybe a ½ inch of ice. Like I said, that Gulf of Mexico moisture is very rich. So if you can get cold air to mesh with it, you can get some significant precip in a short period of time. It's not unheard of, but it's not the most likely scenario either. We look at the NAM, it's a pretty aggressive look too. Still see plenty of areas where we could get up to about a ½ inch plus ice, mainly towards the mountains of Virginia, heading into West Virginia. Maybe towards Northern Virginia, we could see up to a ½ inch plus. Some areas getting up to even 3/10 of an inch to 4 even. Oops. And then, last but not least, the NAM 3 kilometer itself, still showing a similar look. And that's what's alarming about all of this, the fact that even the short range models are picking up on some pretty impressive ice totals. Even saw a spot here that looked like we had maybe, oh wow, 0.69. That's a little bit alarming. So again, we need to keep an eye on this area in particular right here. I think this is going to be where our bullseye is for ice. For snow, I'm leaning more towards this area right here. But this area right here, oops, oh wow, I didn't even connect the circle. This area right here is a little bit more of a question mark to me. And then one other thing I want to note before I switch this over to the blend of models here is that in any of these regions, these system has these types of systems have the tendency to overperform. And what I mean by that is that exact same variable that I was mentioning with the Gulf of Mexico moisture. When it surges in abundance, and should it meet with the cold air that it's expected to, there could be a bigger snow band as a result. So that's something that has to be noted here, something that should not be lost. We could be expecting, with the Gulf of Mexico moisture, there's a lot of warm air that surges with that. So we could end up seeing a lot of these areas also seeing rain. But let's not rule out the possibility of some higher snowfall totals. I've seen an event where I live in Atlanta, by the way, but I remember an event a few years ago where we weren't expecting too much snow, and we got almost a foot that fell in a day. So this is one of those kinds of systems you have to be looking out for. Do I think we'll get a foot in a day anywhere, especially in Atlanta? I don't think so. But let's not sleep on this one. So let's go ahead and now finally look at the blend of models here and get this, get out of you guys' hair here. Okay, so here are our ice totals. A little less aggressive, but still over towards this region, we're still seeing up to about a ½ inch, maybe even 3/10 of an inch in some pockets here of ice. So big problem there. Definitely something that we need to keep a close eye on. Now for the blender models, we're a little less aggressive here, and the main area is going to be over here on this little lip of the Appalachians here, where we could see up to about 1 to 3 inches of snow, maybe locally higher totals. But again, there is the small inkling where we have this spot where we could see up to a trace of snow just south of Atlanta, or maybe just the west of Atlanta too. Like I said though, again, we have to keep an eye on the fact, we have to keep in mind the fact that we are dealing with Gulf of Mexico moisture. Any showers and storms during the summertime that get fed by the Gulf end up being a lot heavier than we expect, and we can sometimes get like local flash flooding from that. So there could be locally higher totals here that aren't being seen on this right now. So again, we'll be going over it again tomorrow, maybe even again Sunday morning, real time. We'll see what happens with that. I know I've rambled a lot on this video. It's a longer weekend forecast than usual. I'm sorry if this doesn't appeal to you, but I'm trying to make sure I'm covering all my ends. That being said, I hope you did find this video useful. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, of course, drop a like. Always appreciate it. If you haven't already, do the double click, like, and subscribe. 80% of you that watch my videos aren't even sub to my channel. So maybe a few more you wouldn't. Maybe a few more you subbing wouldn't hurt. But that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the morning. This has been Metalhead Weatherman. Until then, take care and have a good night.